on this computer. Hello, and today we will be doing what happens if World War III breaks out in 2024. The side will be NATO versus Russia, and we'll be starting with the Ukraine war. I'm just going to now put in what have Russia already claimed or occupied, and the borders look roughly around this. So Putin tries lots of invasions of Ukraine. Some go well, most go badly, with some even losing land. And basically had enough. He needs, they're the second strongest country in the world, but they're not outstandingly winning against Ukraine. So they launch a tactical nuke, not a proper nuke. A tactical nuke is a smaller nuke that's but it's still bigger than the one that was launched on Japan in World War II. So they landed on Kyiv, and Ukraine don't have that much nuclear air resistance, so it lands. This makes a reaction from NATO, which is the Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization, with its leader, the US. People don't really want to get involved, but they just launch a nuke on a country, which is not very good. Russia's allies are Belarus, Kazakhstan, kind of Armenia, but some are trying to become neutral. Then you've got like Central Asia, basically, but some are trying to stick neutral, not Afghanistan. And so I do have a bit of a cold, so I may sound a bit gruffly and sniffly, but that's just life. So yeah, NATO sanction Russia even harder. So Russia are getting sanctioned for what they're doing in Ukraine, but they're getting even harder sanctioned. And it developed into Poland and Romania sending troops into Ukraine. So this is effectively declaring war on Russia. So the first kind of thing is Russia, Belarus joins the war because they're one of Russia's actual proper allies and not forced allies. Ukraine obviously in the war. So who really started this war? No one knows. They were kind of like on the border, and they were sent into Ukraine. They weren't sent together. They just sent to try and organize something with Russia to try and make them stop doing what they're doing. And basically, no one knows who shot first, but someone shot. So both sides claim they were shot first. I'm gonna do blue versus red. Red is normally aggressor, but I'm just gonna. We don't really know who the aggressor in this situation is. So these three versus these two would be quite a tough. Not really even Russia probably win, but it'd be quite close, especially with Ukraine being nuked and them losing a lot of resources, a lot of morale. So maybe probably Russia win. But then they forced Kazakhstan into war, who isn't too strong, but they have enough to support Russia. And I would like to say that Kazakhstan wanted to stay neutral, but they were forced in. And then some NATO countries say, yeah, why not? We should join this because they're being really bad, Russia. So these countries include Finland, countries that have a history with Russia and know what Russia are capable or of in the past or in the past. So these countries join, and but Belarus and Russia launch two separate invasions into Ukraine. Both of them going quite well, especially the Russian one. Russia starts mobilizing more as a NATO war is quite possible. Moldova joins to not really help much, but they do. Armenia is forced into joining, which kind of makes a effect of Turkey, who does not like Armenia at all, joining. Azerbaijan joining. Turkey is in NATO. Azerbaijan isn't, but a very close friend of Turkey and hates Russia. Georgia hates Russia and Armenia, so they also join. And now the sides are kind of set for a blockade of Russia, but not everyone has joined in NATO, obviously. Massive amount of supporters coming. Poland is saying, I'm trying to hold my border, but it's quite hard. I need some help. So, and countries are starting to put troops in, especially countries like Germany join the war. saying that they went first. This is obvious, but some big countries well, Germany is a big country, but the biggest like USA and Russia they don't really want to go in a full scale war with each other because that would be very hard war for both sides. But eventually, they Russia don't get a deal with US, and US says all NATO members have to join the war now. So this is properly starting. Well, the war's already kind of started, but this is like properly starting it. Russia seeing this has happened, they know they need to act quickly before more and more NATO troops arrive. So they near Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, but just before they get there, more and more troops are coming in. They start an invasion of Estonia and the Balkans with the help of Belarus as well. No, not the Balkans, the Baltics. Poland actually captures Kaliningrad, which is part of Russia on their border, and then even starts pushing into Poland, into Belarus. Germany's much supporting them. Some countries that join next are France, United Kingdom, Italy, some really strong countries. And right now, it doesn't seem very fair. So China is a very interesting question to have. So their president has stated that they are anti-nuke. So there's two ways of doing it. They don't join the war. They stay neutral, or they wouldn't really join the war, but don't support Russia because of them using a nuke. Or they realise that a NATO victory could lead to troops on their border who are allied with the US, and they do not want that. Which is also why the Crimean War had not a South Korean victory, more of a draw. So China remains neutral for now, but I think they are still going to buy natural resources from Russia. That's the story I'm going to go with. Meanwhile, Russia starts forcing more and more countries into the war. Let me know if you want a different color for each country. I like red and blue. And then you can even do different shades of red. Like you can go dark red, you can go light red, you can go white, you can go black. You can go whatever color you want to go. Well, not every color, but most colors. So they fall central in, and then so Turkey moves into Armenia, but it's very mountainous in this region. Just to let you know, so it's very hard to invade these countries. The game I'm using is Age of Conflict. It's a great game, but basically the partition Armenia is not strong enough. Maybe it's around the same strength as Georgia, a tiny bit weaker than Azerbaijan, and a tiny bit and much weaker than Turkey. Turkey's the 8th strongest country in the world. So, but Russia starts the offensive into Georgia. Georgia manages to push a tiny bit, but basically Russia's getting stretched out by all sides, like Finland, all of this, not Belarus, but all of basically, and more people are joining because they have to. Basically, the US has said you have to join. So Spain, Portugal, Greece, even. That's a very interesting thing to see. So a country that isn't in NATO is Serbia. They're definitely pro-Russian more than pro-USA. But then if they join the war, they know that they would completely die. So they probably send some supplies to Russia, but they wouldn't join. And this would make Russia a bit annoyed with them. Well, not a bit, they're quite annoyed with them, thinking there'd be traction. Hungary joins. They have a bit of a right-wing government, but they are still in NATO, so they will join. Austria doesn't join, sorry. They are a neutral country. They're not in NATO, but if they had to, they would join. But they obviously don't have to join because they're not in NATO. So you may ask, well, they can just, if they don't want to join, then don't have to join. Like the US can't force them, but they can force them. Most of these countries rely on the US, and without the US, there won't be a very good nation. I mean, there's obviously upset countries that would be fine, or not fine, but okay without the US, like France, UK, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Germany, maybe even Poland. But most of them rely quite a lot on them. Without them, they'd be much weaker. So the US are kind of holding the whole. Well, it makes sense why they're the leader of it then. So more countries joining, like the Netherlands would join. Ireland wouldn't join, not just because they have a bit of a grudge on the UK for holding on to Northern Ireland, also because they want to be a neutral country. Definitely wouldn't side with Russia. No point on doing that. They'd get completely they lose immediately. But it's just showing you here. I mean, red is massive, but compared to how many countries and how strong those countries are. Like these Central American countries, yes, they're quite big, but they're not. No, not Central American, Central Asian. They're not very strong. Albania would join them. Bosnia isn't in NATO, but they applied to join NATO. Croatia as well would join. So yeah, Bosnia, don't know if they join, maybe not. Um, in case they lose and then they have to pay money, but they're not really on the front line, so they wouldn't really lose. So I am gonna make them join the war. Makes the most sense. So everyone's joining the war. This is happening in quite quick succession. Not much land game is happening. There's obviously people dying in, well, that's not a good thing about this, but well, I never said it was, but it's just something that's happening. Finland started, Russia started invasion, but it didn't really work. Meanwhile, their invasion in the Baltics are going a bit better. The Ukrainian invasion worked, and they actually have annexed Ukraine before too many NATO joints come. But Poland have occupied some spots in Ukraine, like that city. But Russia have now broken in and got it. Am I overrating Russia? Maybe, but they have quite a lot of support, and well, not quite a lot, quite a little, but and also not many NATO troops have come yet, and Ukraine are very weak in the side because of the nuke. They start a couple of offensives. Finland kind of does what they did in World War II, not really letting them in. North Macedonia probably would join. Montenegro, all of these relying on the US for their survival, basically. Then we have an interesting one. So Kosovo is in this. I recognize them as a country. Serbia doesn't. Spain doesn't. Russia doesn't. China, I don't think, no, they don't. Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, some countries aligned to Russia, and then Spain is not aligned to Russia. I don't think Greece does either, or maybe even Romania. So they would want to join NATO. They're not in NATO for obvious reasons, as not many people accept them. So they wouldn't really join. So maybe Serbia would see this as an opportunity to be like, wait, everyone else is distracted, so I'll just annex them. So they literally Kosovo is not a country anymore, which is not good for the NATO as they wanted, as they liked them. Iceland is an interesting one. They are in NATO, but they have no military, so they're basically useless. I'll include them in the map just to show like how is Moldova, extremely weak country. Yeah, completely fair, but Romania will be very angry as that was their best friend basically. So Romania will start pushing into Russia, but it won't really work that well. Like I can't see them making a sea invasion of Crimea or anything like that. But I can see them holding off against Russia, especially with you can see that Greece, Bulgaria are all putting troops into them. And these are not weak countries. Even like Hungary would, though Hungary does have a border with Ukraine, so they may be trying to watch that in case of any movement happens. So at this point in the war, this is what I think would happen. Russia would see that Poland are completely thrashing Belarus, and Belarus are not a very strong country. I think in the 70s, around the same strength as Ireland. And Belarus basically just failing, so that and they get loads of revolts, like loads. So I'm just going to spawn some city, like a city there, and let's say that one had a revolt, massive, and then it just split apart. So yeah, we're going to put it in two parts. Russia would intervene and annex that part. Now Belarus is now, as you can see, a tiny nation, like not even at all good. So Russia would be like, join us now, or basically you're gonna die. So they join them. So this is making Russia even bigger. But they're a bit uneconomically stable. They're having quite a lot of revolts, maybe about 1,000 people in Moscow, I think happened when they invaded Ukraine firstly. So quite a lot of people will be faulting, especially about the nuke now going into massive war. Anyone who knows that much about maps won't think they can win, but there is some opportunity if China joins or so. This is not a nuclear war. You may have been like when there was a nuke involved, you may think, oh, this is going to be a nuclear war. This is not going to be a nuclear war for a reason that Russia did not nuke a NATO country. Ukraine is not in NATO, or I guess they're not in this at all. I will be ignoring the Middle East in this universe. I know that this is what if it happened in 2024, but there's too many controversies about this area in general, so I'm not going to include that. What I am going to include is the fact that Iran would not maybe join it, but they definitely support them. So I'm going to put them in like this color to show they are supporting Russia. So they're getting them some stuff. And this is very annoying for some countries like Turkey, who are right next to Iran, and they're worried that Iran will join. Meanwhile, Georgia are struggling to regain their land back, as Russia have put quite a lot of troops here, but not actually as many as they put in Europe for obvious reasons. So Georgia eventually gains most of their land back. Meanwhile, there's a massive mountain range. This is the Caucasus. So you can see this if I click on it, no country shows up. That's a mountain. It should really go across here. So basically, they can't really invade each other. I mean, Azerbaijan can maybe make a couple gains, but they're not going to go that far. Maybe even Russia making a couple gains, but it's just going to be a standstill. But Kazakhstan can cross the Caspian Sea. If I put a crossing here, I mean, I'm not really going to use crossings in this, but let me just put one here to show what they can do. So with their ships and stuff, they're going to go off their coast and try and invade Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. They would have some naval ports already here, so it'd be a massive naval war between them. Both don't have great naval, considering that, I mean, they're not landlocked, they're next to the Caspian, but other than that, they're not exactly next to an ocean or sea, or they are next to the sea, not next to an ocean. They could try and force Mongolia into the war, Russia, that's very possible, and I think they would. But these are countries that, like, Mongolia is the least densely populated country, so it looks quite big, and it is quite big, but it's not very populated. China, would they be supporting? No, they wouldn't. As I said before, they'd be buying stuff from them, which giving them some money, but they would get some resources from it, so that would give less resources to Russia. Eventually, we could, if Russia start really winning, they could join in, but right now it kind of seems like a standstill on this kind of border. I mean, USA and Russia are still trying to make peace. They don't want this to develop into too big of a casualty war for obvious reasons. But here has the second thing that someone's trying to take advantage on. We saw that Serbia was trying to take advantage of Kosovo, which worked. So North Korea will try and make advantage of this. So South Korea is a massive US ally. Without the US, they're one of the strongest countries, but without the US, they wouldn't really be that strong. So North Korea decide, here's the time, and they launch an invasion. This doesn't have what they think. They think they can just take it over easy. But USA hasn't aligned with them, which automatically brings North Korea into the war. So this is just extending the war even larger to this kind of South Korea, North Korea. But this is really not what North Korea wanted. So South Korea will start obviously pushing back with their troops. And here's where it gets really bad, as North Korea decide, I'm not losing to South Korea. So they use a nuke on South Korea. Now, they tried to do it on Seoul, didn't work, as they have too much naval but Air Force blockading and stuff. But they did launch one here. It was quite a big nuke, and it even affected a Japanese island. This brings Japan into the war. They were already considering joining it. Now they're in the war. Now China and basically North Korea's best friend is China, so they call China to join the war. This turns China into a supplier. So they before didn't want to supply, but now they are. And I know they said they're anti-nuke, but then again, their best friend did it, so they didn't really care. I mean, they're not going to join the war and do this. So obviously, South Korea regained their land because they only briefly didn't because it's nuclear, but not many people living there. South Korea are much weakened, but not that weakened because they have lots of USA troops. So the US are landing in Europe by this time, in Germany and Poland by now. So Poland's on the front line, so this will be really helpful. But now they have to pull back some troops to fight in this area, the Pacific. So it's quite annoying. China sees all of this happening and thinks to themselves, well, I know it didn't work for North Korea, but Taiwan is literally my island, is what they're thinking. So why don't we just invade? Does this bring China into the war? This is a massive question. Does it? I don't know really. I can only make a guess. So they made a massive landing. Taiwan is not a weak country, but then you have China, which is an extremely strong country. So you have Taiwan on the top here, holding on basically. And USA sent a message to China saying, China, if you pull your troops out of Taiwan or you go to war. Now, China does not want to go to the war with the US. They don't want to join forces with Russia. So do they join or not? This is where I'm taking a bit of a guess. I'm going to say they don't join for now, but they start supporting even more. And they try and sign a peace deal with Taiwan where Taiwan becomes an independent nation properly. But they do not exactly just gain all of this land. Maybe not, they don't do that. They lose southern bits, but they're not going to go to China. They're going to make, because USA would not allow that, they are going to become South Taiwan, which is basically a Chinese puppet. It's basically part of China, so I'm just going to call it the exact same color as China to make it. Yeah, it's basically a Chinese puppet. I'm going to rename it. It's not going to be called Well Corner. So it's going to be called South Taiwan. So Taiwan is not exactly very happy about this. They're like, Taiwan. But they can't really do anything about it. Taiwan is basically now North Korea, South Korea, just South Korea's, well, not bad because I can't really say, but yeah, in my opinion, they are bad. So North Korea, well, North Korea is bad, and it's just, so Taiwan is basically South Korea, South Taiwan is basically North Korea, but they're not going to be called North Taiwan, they're just going to be called Taiwan. So looking at that, next we have Russia really trying to take out this Georgia and trying to, so they push loads of troops in. This works for a bit, but Turkey have lots of troops there. Now I'm gonna fill in with this with crossing so you can see the naval war, which I kind of like to do. So Turkey have lots of naval, obviously, across their coast and even part of Georgia's coast. Meanwhile, Russia obviously has around their coast, but they also have a bit more. They have quite good control over the Black Sea. So you can have this naval war pan out. So Turkey probably pushes back a bit, but Russia do have quite a good naval force. They're going to push right to the border. They're not going to make an invasion, it's basically impossible, but they won this naval war. So Turkey have to spend a lot of resources to stop them from doing this, which makes Georgia much more vulnerable. It's basically Azerbaijan and Georgia versus Russia now, with them having limited supplies in Turkey. This leads to Georgia being annexed and then being an easy invasion into Armenia. Now Turkey's best friend is Armenia, so they will not like this. But they can't really do anything about it because they're split off, except for invade. So they make a full invasion of Russia, which they didn't really want to do, but they're going to do it to try and distract them from Azerbaijan. But this is going to weaken their naval, which is already trembling a bit, and it's going to fail. And Russia's actually going to have their first big win of this war, and they're going to, except for the annexation of Ukraine, and they're going to try and make an invasion, which starts off well. And then Turkey regains their, reassembles their troops and doesn't really work. So it was a bit of a fail, but for a moment it looked like it was a turning tide for Russia to win the war. So lots of peace deals have been flying around, like give back Ukraine their independence and you can keep Belarus and you can keep Georgia. That could be something going on. Or make a East Ukraine, West Ukraine. East Ukraine you can annex and then West Ukraine can join NATO, or make Belarus East Belarus. So there's lots of peace deals because they don't really want to go into full out war. Right now it is kind of full out war, but it's not like USA are sending all their troops. So, but that will happen soon if they can't make a peace deal. And then the massive thing happens. So Poland basically have these three massive powers, and maybe even a bit of Spain and Italy, who have also massive powers, into Poland. And Poland does a massive invasion. And their goal of this is to capture Kiev. So they do a spearhead formation, which is going out against their country. Well, not, yeah. And they capture Kiev. So the Kiev is the capital of Ukraine. Well, Ukraine isn't a thing in this, but it is the capital. So this is basically a massive loss for Russia. Finland, who aren't looking too great right now, they're pushing back. Norway pushing back. This is a massive loss, and they're trying to regain it. They call all Kazakhstan troops to pull back from the invasion of Baku and go into Russia. They call all troops. This makes like kind of feel like they don't have control, and especially Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, who really want to be neutral, say I'm not doing this, I'm being neutral, and they leave the war. I mean, this is not much of a difference, but it is just showing the Russia's fragile alliances. Iran's still supporting them, but now they may join the war, but they were thinking about it, but then Kiev was captured, and they just feel like, well, if they're losing now, then what's the point of joining it? Romania pushed back to try and gain the Moldovan capital. That also works. Turkey tries to make an invasion of Crimea. That also works. It's basically the downfall of Russia. So Russia's still trying to push back, still trying to gain Kiev, still trying to gain Crimea, still trying to push. They just have too many fronts. And then if you look at the South Korean North Korean border, North Korea sent more nukes. So not even just one, they send more nukes. This time, not just South Korea, they keep on Japan, and this is turning it into a nuclear war. Now, Japan and South Korea don't have nukes, but who does have nukes? Well, UK do, France do, quite a lot of nukes, and then you have obvious one, the US with you, Russia, but we are going to launch a new power, a massively powered nuke, probably the biggest ever, well, definitely the biggest ever used. Going to use a 11 size, no, that's too big. 8 size for this. No, still too big. But I'm just gonna, and it lands on their capital and it affects so much land of North Korea. Basically, this is showing that North Korea will lose the war because that nuke was too powerful by the US. So South Korea does manage to capture all of North Korea and even regain thing back, but they're not exactly in a great position. So they went from 5th to maybe 20 something because of the nukes and stuff, even with their new land. And China says, "Oh my, we really don't want this to happen," and but they don't want to join the war against the US. So they try and sign a deal where North Korea becomes a state again, but they become a neutral state, not aligned to China or the US. But this is declined as they aren't even in the war with China, and they already won it. There's no point compromising. This border does not look very good, but I'm not can't really fix it in a war. But I'm gonna try. So Poland captures southern lands and more. And by this time, Russia trying to seek a peace deal really quickly before it comes really bad. But then it kind of went really bad as they captured the 2 Belarusian cities, and then comes the siege of St. Petersburg, which is this little green dot, the second most important city in Russia after Moscow. So the siege goes quite well, but Russia still holding on to it. This is when China stopped supporting them, thinking this. And then Mongolia leaves the war, as they did not want to join it in the first place. Same with Kyrgyzstan. And here's a Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan are in an active conflict. So while they had to stop the conflict just to help Russia. They did not like that. So now these two are at war, but that doesn't really matter. Then we have Kazakhstan also leaving the war. Basically, everyone's leaving the war. Even Iran, who was stopped supporting them, knowing that Russia will lose, and they don't want to waste their money, which is already quite fragile. And then China basically is like, okay, we can't lose this war fully and join NATO. So this is very controversial, but they obviously don't want NATO to come too close to their border. So they make a massive invasion of the south, and it goes quite successful, as they were not prepared for an invasion, Russia, from China. They capture, encircle. Japan have a policy after World War II where they only defend and not attack. So they will not attack anyone. So they will not try and regain that island, which they had before World War II when they lost it because they were on the wrong side. So Russia try and hold on to this one. They don't have many troops here. So they basically, China says to Japan, I captured the island, you can have it. And this is going really badly. So Russia wants to sign a peace deal with China immediately. China says, why don't we just split the line there? So this may look massively, but all the land that they don't want to do is completely frozen, basically. It has lots of material. So, but we're gonna spawn a revolt. Yeah, okay, didn't fully go into the border that I wanted. So this is gonna be a puppet state of China. This is gonna be called Siberia because that's the region, and it's gonna give exclusive deals to China. So now China leaves the war thinking, you know what, I did what I can. Green is the go-to neutral color for me. You can give me other suggestions. So Finland captured St. Petersburg, and now they're ready to sign a peace deal. So I am going to do the peace deal here. Obviously, that is made as a thing. I mean, I'm not going to do the peace deal yet. Actually, they tried to settle one and it didn't work. So Poland, and this is not just Poland, they're not strong enough to do this. This is the US, UK, France, all of them pushing on Moscow, surrounding Moscow. Finland then starts expanding even more of their land, and Turkey gains more land. Georgia, it's kind of like we made, and Russia basically are panicking. They're trying to get back into Moscow, pushing all their troops here. They're saying every troop leave where you are, which is making a massive push from all countries saying, oh, they basically have no troops there, so we're just going to invade. But they do lose Moscow anyway, but they get, no, they don't. Well, they do, kind of do. So Moscow's caught, but then they unravel Moscow. But Moscow's still caught by them. Eventually, it easily expands. They gain that lake, which has some importance, not that much importance, but it's quite a big lake, so quite a lot of fishing and stuff. Finland gain even more. Estonia gain up to that old border and more. Lithuania gain more. It's just a whole disruption of them. Even Kazakhstan seizes this land, even though they're neutral. They just basically seized a bit. That I don't know what that's called, but I know there's a bit of land there that Kazakhstan has wanted. I don't know why, really. But here's now Moscow's gone. They basically have full thing what they want to do to it, and this is the proper peace deal. It's the whole of NATO. China's up the peace deal. Russia is up the peace deal, but they basically have to accept whatever's thrown at them. So Russia's are split into regions. Yeah. So I'm just gonna fill out what Russia's border should look like around roughly. And it should look around like that. No, that's too, yeah, like I don't know. I'm not great at drawing borders, but that's basically it. And then I'm gonna push this back. I am gonna give back Ukraine their land. I'm rubbish at drawing Ukraine's borders, but we'll see how this works. Okay, then I'll white just captured those two as well. This is gonna obviously have Crimea. This is really annoying colors now. Okay, gonna put them as orange. Gonna expand them down this one and this thing. Gonna have much more land this way. Actually, that's the Moldovan. That's the Moldovan capital. So maybe not too much. Let me just make Moldova. That's perfect, basically perfect. And then I guess Floxville, but they're gonna be Ukraine soon. This is really annoying to draw such a small border. Anyway, the borders are looking a bit off. Lithuania's going to gain that. Looks a bit like a square. Massive Finland expansion's going to go all the way to basically what they had. I shouldn't have got rid of it anyway. But they're not going to go to St. Petersburg because it's too much of a valuable city. But now we're going to split them into regions. So that's I don't know exactly what the region looks like. Spawn, yeah, okay, that's not what the region looks like. We're gonna make Georgia again the country. That's not what this is really annoying. It's basically making them massive and they're not. Playing all of that. Don't go that high. Belarus, gonna. I'm not great at, as I said. So I guess it's already just made that one. Now I'm gonna include it into this. This will be the proper Russian, well, like the old Russian. They're allowed to keep that. as it was seen as it was too much like the complete demise of a Russian state is a bit much. But this is, I'm gonna draw the line a bit better here, as this is gonna get this island, it's gonna get these, it's gonna get this, it's gonna get up to there. The thing is annoying about this, it's a square, so I have to draw in squares, but this would look around this. I don't really know what they look like, so I'm just kind of splitting them apart. This would be a NATO ally. So this Russian, it's kind of the same government as it was before, but it's under lots of NATO protectorate. So if they do anything, NATO gets involved basically. Turkey says that they did so much in the war, they should be able to gain some land, so they basically gain Armenia. I feel like maybe that was not the capital. Maybe that was the Armenian. No, that's the Armenian capital. It's just next province. I know it splits into 7 massive provinces. I'm just gonna do 4, which is much less. But 4 provinces. I guess only can make this bigger. Russia's such a big country. I know I'm just getting rid of. It's not gonna look perfect. It's just not. The video is nearly over. I mean, you don't need to watch this, but I kind of want to show you what would happen in the peace deal. So I'm just going to choose that as the border. Hopefully that looks okay. I'm not going to, I don't know what to name these. They're just going to be NATO puppets. Even this will probably be a bit of a NATO puppet. So I'm just going to color NATO in blue. That does not look like Ukraine. If you look back at the beginning of the video, that does not look like Ukraine. Does this look like Belarus? No. It's just not going to look like it, but it's fine. That's going to be Korea. It's not going to be South Korea anymore, which is going to be United Korea. Much easier to do like this. It's going to gain that. That Siberia. It's going to gain back what basically was taken by Turkey, but I feel like that's going into Manchuria. Let me check. Yeah, that is going into Manchuria. Okay, let me just expand. Yeah, that's fine. So Siberia is going to be under China. This could start like in the future. It's going to be a world dominated by China versus USA instead of China versus Russia. No, I mean USA versus Russia. This one would probably be a neutral country and of color in green. This one would be a NATO puppet. So yeah, it's in the right color. This one would be a NATO puppet. This would be forced to join NATO. Well, not forced. It's Ukrainian government. What's up this? You kind of get what I mean. All of this NATO, that's NATO. The Central Asian countries are very annoyed because so these countries, because they were in the war originally, they don't have to do much, but they do have to pay a bit of fair fee. I mean, in the upcoming years, China will try and take, but it won't really work. South Taiwan is not really going to work as a government. Taiwan will, kind of. So Taiwan will play that, and NATO is going to expand. So it's not going to be NATO anymore. It's going to be a whole massive alliance, including everything that wants to join. As I said, I'm not going to rename some things because it's just too long. This is a massive looking Georgia. Should not look like that. Anyway, but they're called red bug. Anyway, yeah, that will take it up for this video. If you like, please leave in the comments. If you have any tips on how to do the borders better, or if anyone knows how to draw borders, please let me know. If you have any questions about what to do, if you want a part 2 where it's a rising thing versus China versus NATO, please let me know. If you want to explore this map more, just let me know. If you have any, just gonna say let me know like 20 times. But if you have any ideas for the next one, let me know. And thank you for watching.